Daf Yomi, Tractate Avodah Zarah, page 75. We're really winding down here in Tractate Avodah Zarah. It's our last page or two. And it's been a fun ride, interesting journey, nice, interesting adventure. Avodah Zarah, and looking forward to Horiot, the next Masechta. It's only 13 daf. It goes up to daf 14, but it's 13 daf. And Avodah Zarah, page 75, with the words Rav Amar, very top line. Rav Amar, B'mayim behu hadin le'efer, Rabba Baba Chanama le'efer, behu hadin le'mayim v'lo plegi. Rav says one must cleanse it with water first, and the same must be done with ashes subsequently. Rabba Bar Chana says one must cleanse it with ashes first, and the same must be done with water subsequently. The Gemara comments, and they do not disagree. This statement that it must be cleansed first with ashes and subsequently with water was stated with regard to a damp wine press. That statement that first it must be moistened with water and then cleansed with ashes was stated with regard to a dry wine press. Itmar berav bishmei derav amri tarti telat shmul amar telat arba. A dispute was stated with regard to this matter. The sages of the school of Rav say, in the name of Rav, that the cleansing process consists of 2 stages for a damp wine press, namely ashes and water, and 3 stages for a dry wine press, namely water, ashes, and water. And Shmuel says that it consists of 3 stages for a damp wine press, namely ashes, water, and ashes, and 4 stages for a dry wine press, namely water, ashes, water, and ashes. Besura masnu achi bepum bedita masnu beirav amri mishmerav telas arba ushmul amar arba chamesh. In Surah, they taught the dispute in this preceding manner, but in Pumbedita, they taught it in the following manner. The sages of the school of Rav said, in the name of Rav, that the cleansing process consists of 3 stages for a damp wine press, namely ashes, water, and ashes, and 4 stages for a dry wine press, namely water, ashes, water, ashes. And Shmuel says that it consists of 4 stages for a damp wine press, namely ashes, water, ashes, water, and 5 stages for a dry wine press, namely water, ashes, and water. Wow, it's a real thorough cleaning process. V'lo pligi, ma kachashiv maya basrai, ma lo kachashiv maya basrai. The Gemara comments with regard to the latter version of the dispute, and they do not actually disagree. One sage, Shmuel, counts the last rinsing with water, which is only in order to remove the ashes. And the other sage, Rav, does not count the last rinsing with water. Therefore, Rav counts 3 and 4 stages, whereas Shmuel counts 4 and 5. 3 and 4 stages. 3 and 4, not 3 or 4. 3 and 4, whereas Shmuel counts 4 and 5. Be'omine mirav yabahu hanegoged amai de'arami mai. The students asked Rabbi Abahu with regard to a similar issue of cleansing a utensil from the wine of non-Yehudim. With regard to those wicker nets used to hold the grapes during the treading, which belong to the non-Yehudim, what is the way to cleanse them? Amar lehu al yabahu Tinetua Arashehu Gita Beit Badav Tamein Ubikesh Lasotan Beteha Hadapin Ve'adashin Ve'lulavin Medichan Ve'akalin Shel Tzorin V'shel Bitzbutz Min Agvan V'shel Shifa V'shel Gemi Miyashnan Shneim Asar Chodesh Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel Omer Manichan Migad Legad Umibad Lebad. Rabbi Abba said to them, you learned this in a Braita in the case of one whose wine presses or olive presses were impure, and he wished to prepare his grapes and olives in a state of purity. He must first cleanse the presses from the impure produce for which they were used. He must rinse the planks used as a frame in the winepress, and the troughs and the twigs used as brooms in the winepress, and he must cleanse the pressing baskets with ashes and water if they were made of palm leaves or hemp, or leave them dormant 12 months if they were made of bulrush or of reeds, because these absorb more of the wine. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel says he may leave them dormant from one wine pressing season to the next wine pressing season, or from one olive pressing season to the next olive pressing season. Vaitel Hainu Tane Kame Gibenayu Kofe Ve'afele Kofe Ve'afele. The Gemara interjects, isn't this opinion of Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel the same as that of the first Tana, as 12 months pass from one wine pressing season to the next? The Gemara responds, the difference between them is with regard to early ripening grapes and late ripening grapes. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel does not require a precise measure of 12 months, as the lapse between ripening seasons may be greater or less. Rav Yossi Omer Harotze letahan miyad Mag'ilan berotchin Ocholtan bimei zeitim. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel Mishum Rav Yossi Omer Benichant haratzino shemema bekal chinam b'mayan shemema v'rotvin v'kama boni. The Braita continues. Rav Yossi says, one who wishes to purify the winepress or olive press immediately without waiting a year can purge them by pouring boiling water over them or scald them in water used for cooking olives. Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel says, in the name of Rabbi Yossi, he can place them under a pipe whose water flows constantly, or in a spring with rapid waters. And for how long should he leave them there? He should leave them for an interval of time, as the Gemara will explain. The Braita adds, in the same way that the sages stated these cleansing instructions with regard to a wine press used for libation wine, so they stated these instructions with regard to matters of purity. Klape laya bitaros kaminan ela kedera shamu bitaros kach ambro b'yenesech. The Gemara asks with regard to this last clause, isn't it the opposite? We are dealing in this Braita with matters of purity, not with the matter of wine used for a libation. Rather, the Braita should be amended in the same way that the sages stated this with regard to matters of purity. So they stated this with regard to libation wine. Kama Oneh, Amar Rabbi Chia bar Abba, Amar Rabbi Yohanan, O Yom O Laila, Rabbi Chana she'ina. V'amri la Rabbi Chana bar she'ina. Rabbi Bar Chana Amar Rabbi Yochanan Chatzi Yom Chatzi Laila. The Gemara asks, how long is an interval of time? Rabbi Chia bar Abba says that Rabbi Yochanan says it is either an entire day or an entire night. Rabbi Chana She'ina, and some say it's Rabbi Chana bar She'ina, says that Rabbi Bar Chana says that Rabbi Yochanan says it is a half a day and a half a night. Amar Shmuel bar Yitzchak lo pligi ha b'tekufat Nisan v'Tishrei ha b'tekufat Tammuz v'Tevet. Rabbi Shmuel bar Yitzchak says, and they do not agree. This statement that it is neither a day or a night is referring to the season of Nisan or Tishrei, meaning the fall or spring, when the day and the night are of equal length, and that statement, that is half a day and half a night, is referring to the season of Tammuz or Tevet, meaning the summer or winter when they are not equal, and so 12 hours are measured by half the day and half the night. Amar Rav Yehuda Hani Ravaki Deramai Demazia Medichan Be'amra Minagvan Dechitana Yeshnan Ve'ika Kitre Share Lahu Hani Dekole Bechalada Deramai Dechayati Bechavle Detzore Medichan. Rabbi Yehuda says, in order to cleanse those non-Yehudis straining bags, which are used for straining yeast from wine, with regard to those made of hair, which is not absorbent, one may rinse them. With regard to those made of wool, which one must cleanse them with ashes and water. With regard to those made of flax, which is more absorbent, one must leave them dormant. And if there are knots, one must undo them, in order to cleanse those non-Yehudis' baskets and strainers. With regard to those that are plaited from palm strips, one may rinse them. And now we move on to 75b, Ayin Hayam and Beis, top of the page with the word Ditzavta. Ditzavta, 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 die, 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 die. Hopefully we'll return after the break. Continuing on the top of 75b with the word Ditzavta. Ditzavta lenigvan dechintana, dechitana miyashnan, v'yitbehu kitre sharelahu. With regard to those that are plated from tzavta, one must cleanse them with ashes and water. With regard to those that are plated from flax, one must leave them dormant, and if they have knots, one must undo them. Itzmal Amor es shoeshet yado legas v'noga be'eshkolot Rabbi v'Rabbi Chia chadamar אשכול וכל סביבותיו תמיין וכל הגת כל התורה וחד אמר כל הגת כולה נמי טמאה. The Gemara discusses another aspect of the purity of a wine press. It was stated, in the case of one who is unreliable with regard to ritual impurity, an Am Haaretz, who reached his hand into the wine press and touched grape clusters that were lying in the wine. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi and Rabbi Chia disagree. One says that the cluster he touched and all its surroundings are rendered impure, but the rest of the entire wine press is pure. And one says that the rest of the entire wine press is also rendered impure. as the entire winepress is considered connected due to the wine in it. ולמד ימש כל זיועים בכל גל כל התוירו מה ישנו מהמדתנן שרזים צפוחיים אין מטעמי אלא מקום מן מגעו ואם היה משכין מעליך כל טעמי. The Gemara asks that according to the one who says that the cluster and all its surroundings are impure, but the rest of the entire winepress is pure, in what way is this case different from that which we learned in the Mishnah, Taharot 9:8? The carcass of a creeping animal that was found in an oil press transmits impurity to the place it touched alone. But if there was liquid flowing in the mill, it is all rendered impure. Why is it not the halacha in the case of the wine press as well as that the entire wine press is impure due to the liquid in it? The Gemara answers there, in the case of the oil press, there is nothing that interrupts the flow of the liquid, and therefore the liquid connects everything to render it impure. Here, the clusters of grapes interrupt the flow of the wine, and so there is no uninterrupted connection between all of the wine in the wine press. Ole Rabbanan Rabbi Yirmiyah. The sages taught Rabbi Yirmiyah, and some say they taught the son of Rabbi Yirmiyah, in accordance with the statement of the one who says the cluster and all its surroundings are impure, but the entire winepress is pure. Okay, that's it for the Gemara, and now we start in the Mishnah. Halokeach kalei tashmish min hagoyim. Echad shudar kol hatbil yatbil. Lehageil yageil. ילבן באור, השפוט וההשכלה, מלבנן באור, הסכין שפה והיא טהורה. One who purchases cooking utensils from the non-Yehudim must prepare them for use by Yehudim in the following manner. With regard to those utensils whose manner of preparation is to immerse them in a ritual bath, as they require no further preparation, he must immerse them accordingly. With regard to those utensils whose manner of preparation is to purge them with boiling water, as those utensils are used with boiling water, for example, pots, he must purge them accordingly. With regard to those whose manner of preparation is to heat until white hot in the fire, as they are used for grilling, he must heat them until white hot in the fire. Therefore, with regard to the spit and the grill, he must heat them until white hot in the fire. With regard to the knife, he must polish it, and it is rendered pure. And now the Gemara, the Talmud says, Tana, Nichulan Sichen Tvil Abayim So, Minohani Mili, Amar Avodah, Amar Kra, Kol Dora, Sher Yavo Baesh, Tavil Baesh, B'Taher. Osif Lecha, Hakatuv Tahara Acheres. The sages taught, and they all require immersion in 40 sa'ah of water, including utensils that must first be purged in boiling water or heated until white hot. The Gemara asks, from where is this matter derived? Rava says it is derived from that which the verse states with regard to utensils captured in the battle against the Midianites. Anything that may tolerate fire, you shall make go through the fire, and it shall be pure. Numbers 31:23. By stating, and it shall be pure, the verse added to the process another required act of purification in order to heating the utensil with fire, which is understood to be immersion. Tani bal kapara mitoch shenema b'mei nida shomea ani shetzarich hazara shlishi ushvi'i talmud lomar ach chalak. Bar Kapara teaches an additional source for this halacha from that which is stated in the continuation of the verse. Nevertheless, it shall be purified with the water of sprinkling. I would derive that the utensils require sprinkling the purification water on the third and the seventh day of their purification process, as is the halacha, in the case of one who is impure with impurity imparted by a corpse. Therefore, the verse states, nevertheless, indicating that the Torah makes a distinction in this case, and that sprinkling on the third and seventh day are not required. Im kain, ma talmud lomar b'mei nida, b'mayim shenida toveres behen, ali omer abayim Zarah. If that is so, what is the meaning when the verse states with the water of sprinkling, b'mei nida? Clearly, the term nida is referring to, or is not to sprinkling, but to a menstruated woman, who is also called a nida. Accordingly, the verse means that the utensils must be immersed in water in which a menstruating woman can immerse in order to become pure. And you must say that this is referring to a ritual bath that contains 40 se'ah of water. It's trich lemichtav, that is rainwater, that is. It's trich lemichtav v'taher, it's trich lemichtav v'menida, ichasa v'taher, havi omer v'taher kol dehu, kasa chon v'menida. The Gemara explains that both sources for this halacha are necessary. It was necessary for the Torah to write, and it shall be pure, and it was necessary for the Torah to write with the water of sprinkling, because if the Torah had written only, and it shall be pure, I would say that the verse means, and it shall be pure, by immersion in any amount of water. Therefore, the merciful one writes with the water of sprinkling. And the merciful one, and if the merciful one had written on with regard to water sprinkling, I would say that the process requires the setting of the sun, as in the halacha with regard to a menstruated woman, whose immersion renders her pure only after sunset. Therefore, the merciful one writes, and it shall be pure, indicating that the utensils can be purified immediately. Baravu, afilu kelu chadashim b'mashma yashanim v'libedan kachadashim namu afilu achi b'ayid afilu maskiv la rav sheishek yihachi afilu zul zar sarva nami amar le klei suda amurin v'parasha. Rav Nachman says that Rabba Bar Avu says even new utensils that were never used, that are brought from non-Yehudim, or bought from non-Yehudim, are meant to be included in the requirement of immersion as old utensils that one heated until white hot are similar to new utensils, as they do not contain the flavor of non-kosher food, and nevertheless they require immersion. Rav Sheshes objects to this. If so, then even scissors for cutting clothing should require immersion as well. Rav Nachman said to him, only utensils used in the preparation of meals are mentioned in the passage in the Torah, and only those require immersion. Rav Nachman says that Rabba Bar Avu says the sages taught this only with regard to utensils that were purchased from non-Yehudim and are therefore comparable to utensils mentioned in the incident that was related to the passage. But The requirement does not apply to Barad Besas. Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Yosef Zivan Mena Dimar Zanu Goy Savar Li Hadvila Male Amale Ahu Merabanan Rabbi Yaakov Shmei Didi Miparasha Le Mine Rabbi Yochanan Klei Matachos Amuchin Miparasha. Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Yosef bought a utensil of Marta, a mixture of earth and dung, from a non-Yehudi. He thought he was required to immerse it. One of the sages, Rabbi Yaakov was his name, said to him, "It was explained to me personally by Rabbi Yochanan himself that this requirement applies to metal utensils alone, as those are utensils mentioned in the passage." Amar Rashi, Hani, klei zechuchis ho'il, v'chi nishtabu yesh lahen takana, kechli matachos tamu. Unya ligiba erav achal rabina, chadama meschilasa, v'chadama yesofo v'ilchaza kesofo. Rav Ashi says with regard to glass utensils, since when were broken, they can be fixed, meaning remade, if one melts them down and fashions the material into new utensils. They are similar to metal utensils and also require immersion with regard to lead glazed earthenware utensils. Rav Acha and Ravina disagree. One says the halacha is in accordance with its initial state, since it was initially an earthenware utensil. It does not require immersion, and one says the halacha is in accordance with its ultimate state. Since it is coated with metal, it requires immersion. The Gemara concludes, and the halacha is in accordance with its ultimate state. Okay. Iboilu mashkanta mai amar mar barvashi abba mashker le goy kasa ichaspat vatable veishtebe velo yedale mishum mekazav al mashkanta ki zivine namya imishum mechazia le goy adaite lishakoye. A dilemma was raised before the sages. If a Yehudi is holding a non-Yehudi's utensil as collateral, what is the halacha? Is he required to immerse it or not? Mar Barvashi said, a non-Yehudi once gave my father a silver goblet as collateral, and he immersed it and drank from it. But I do not know whether this was because he maintained that possessing the utensil as collateral is considered like a purchase, or because he saw that the non-Yehudi's intention was to leave it with him, and therefore he considered it as his own. הלוקח להתשמש מן הגויים ודברים שלא נשתמש בהן מטביעים והם תוירים דברים שנשתמש בהן על ידי ציינן כגויים קייסס וקיטוניוס וצילוחיוס מתחילים ומטבילים והם תוירים דברים שנשתמש בהן על ידי חמין כגון יוירויס הקום כמוסין ומחמין מגילן ומטבילין והן טהורין דברים שנשתמש בהן על ידי האור כגון השיפודין והאסקלרות מלבנן ומטבילן והן טהורין. The sages taught one who purchases utensils from the non-Yehudim must prepare them for use in the following manner. With regard to items that the non-Yehudi did not use, one immerses them and they are pure. With regard to items that the non-Yehudi used for cold food, one moment here. Okay. Weiter. I think we're at the Tanu Rabbanan. I'm not sure where I left off. So let's go. Oh yeah, Mashkanta. You did that. Oh, we'll just start from Mashkanta. I did this already, but I'll do it again. A dilemma was raised before the sages if a Yehudi is holding a non-Yehudi's utensils collateral. What is the halacha? Is he required to immerse it or not? Mar Bar Ashi said, a non-Yehudi once gave my father a silver goblet as collateral. I don't remember this. Let's see here. Ravina and Rav Acha disagree. Rav Ashi said with regard to glass utensils. Oh yeah, Rav Yitzchak the earthen done, or that's nasty. I mean, maybe it didn't smell bad, but whatever. You know what? I probably said this already, but I'm going to start from your ending from Rav Ashi. Rav Ashi says with regard to glass utensils, since when? Yeah, I for sure said this, but I'm saying anyway because just to start it. Rav Ashi says, the good Chazara. Rav Ashi says with regard to glass utensils, since when broken they can be fixed, remade if one melts them down and fashions the material into new utensils, they are similar to metal utensils and also require immersion. With regard to lead glazed earthenware utensils, Rav Acha and Ravina disagree. One says the halacha is in accordance with its initial state. Since it was initially an earthenware utensil, it does not require immersion. And one says the halacha is in accordance with its ultimate state. Since it is coated with metal, it requires immersion. The Gemara concludes, and the halacha is in accordance with its ultimate state. Ibailu mashkanta mai. Yeah, I said this. All right. Little chazar never hurts. Ibailu mashkanta mai. Amar baravashi. Abba mashkin laegoy kasal chasba v'tablev ishti. Bev lo yidani mishum negasav mashkanta. Ki zivne damya mishum nechazi legoy zayti l'shkoye. A dilemma was raised before the sages. If a Yehudi is holding a non-Yehudi utensil as collateral, what is halacha? Is he required to immerse it or not? Mar Bar Ashi said, a non-Yehudi once gave my father a silver goblet as collateral, and he immersed it and drank from it. But I do not know whether this was because he maintained that possessing the utensil as collateral is considered like a purchase, or because he saw that the non-Yehudi's intention was to leave it with him, and therefore he considered it as his own. Tanu Abanad, Lokiach Leitash bin Goyim, Devarim Nishtamish Bohem mit Matbilin Vein Teuren, Devarim Nishtamish Bohem al Yedei Zoinein, Kegoin Koisois Vikatoniot, Utzilochiot, Madichan, Umatbilan Vehim Teuren. Devarim Nishtamish Bohem al Yedei Chamin, כגוין היאירויס והקום קומוסין ומחמי חמין מגילן ומטבילן והם טהורין דברים שנשתמש בהם על ידי האור כגון השיפודין והאסקלוס מלבנן ומטבילין והם טהורין. The sages taught one who purchased utensils from the non-Yehudim must prepare them for use in the following manner. With regard to items that the non-Yehudi did not use, one immerses them and they are pure. With regard to items that the non-Yehudi used for cold food or drink, such as cups and jugs and flasks, one rinses them and immerses them and they are pure. With regard to items that the non-Yehudi used for hot food or drink, such as large pots, small kettles, and samovars, one purges them with boiling water and immerses them, and they are pure. With regard to items that the non-Yehudi used with fire, such as spits and grills, one heats them until white hot and immerses them, and they are pure. And with regard to all utensils that one used before immersing and purging and heating them until white hot, it is taught in one braita that the food prepared with them is forbidden, and it is taught in another braita that the food prepared with them is permitted. V'lo kashya. Hakiman di'ama notin tam livgam asu. Hakiman di'ama notin tam livgam mutao. The Gemara explains this contradiction is not difficult. This ruling that the food prepared with such utensils is forbidden is according to the one who says that if a forbidden substance imparts flavor to a permitted food to the detriment of the mixture, the permitted food is forbidden. That ruling that the food prepared with such utensils is permitted is according to the one who says that if a forbidden substance imparts flavor to a permitted food to the detriment of the mixture, it remains permitted. Here, too, since the flavor of non-kosher food imparted by the utensil detracts from the flavor of the food, such food is permitted. The Gemara asks, but according to the one who says that if a forbidden substance imparts flavor to a permitted food to the detriment of the mixture, then the mixture is permitted with regard to utensils of non-Yehudim that require purging with which the merciful ones renders forbidden until they are purged. How can you find these circumstances when it is actually prohibited to use the utensils until they are purged? Since the utensils impart a detrimental flavor to food that is cooked in them, there seems to be no reason not to use utensils of non-Yehudim without purging them. Rav Chia, son of Rav Huna, says the Torah renders forbidden only a pot.